So, John, we've both been talking a lot about AI recently, and AI is obviously in the news everywhere where you turn. It's AI, AI, AI. But it may be that many solopreneurs, small business owners, sole proprietors are either intimidated or just plain too busy to pay any attention to what's going on at the moment. And you're working quite a lot specifically in this space with small business owners and AI. So it's worthwhile having a chat about how small business owners, SMEs, sole proprietors, solopreneurs, founders can actually leverage AI to their advantage. What's your top tips for them?
I think it is absolutely true that this is pervasive across all media. You'd have to be living under a rock not to see the speed and acceleration of what's being produced from many different platforms, which can help lots of people. Business owners can help, families can help, people across pretty much every element of their lives. I think for a business owner, the most important thing is always to keep in mind of why you started your business in the first place. So what's the problem you're trying to solve? What's the solution you're offering to people, the product or service which helps solve that problem? And knowing where you fit in that kind of process. Now, an entrepreneur who's trying to deliver a set of products or services would, if they're not trying to build out a team to deliver that, whether that team is in-house or whether it's using suppliers or whether it's using contractors, associates, or whatever model they're using, you will need to kind of build out people who have expertise in different areas. And I think this is a key opportunity for founders and for people growing businesses is to look at bringing AI in as almost like an additional team member, and not just one team member, but multiple team members across different disciplines. But start somewhere easy. So, for example, if you have a business where you are prospecting, you're talking to clients, you're doing kind of prospecting calls, you're recording them, or you're taking notes on them, and then you're following up. Then use AI to capture what is being recorded. Use AI to create notes or summaries of those meetings, and use AI to try and summarize and create some next steps or actions of what you're trying to do. If you're developing a new product or service, use some of the capabilities in some of the leading platforms. I would kind of boil it down to Claude and ChatGPT, and probably look at the capabilities in some of the paid versions to be able to accelerate your research or to put sort of documentation together, which you would be able to do yourself or should be able to do yourself, which but would be quite time consuming. And that can be from building business cases, from doing market research, from looking at the specifics of what your product or service should have to solve the particular problem you're trying to offer as a solution for out into the world, and to be able to capture those pieces, to have AI connecting with different elements of your business, to be able to take some of the load off your shoulders before you start paying additionally for new team members to come on board. And
A
each
team extension kind of a thing.
like an extension. So your own team would be, and I think we've used this kind of terminology before. It's almost like a really knowledgeable and really fast working intern coming into the business, who you can ask them to write copy, ask them to do research, ask them to come along to meetings and
Take
trans
notes and that kind of a thing. Transcribe.
but also take it one step further and put together summaries, action plans, and try and group some sets of conversations, which often range across many different topics. And there are pretty low paid products these days which can do that as efficiently, if not more efficiently, than people coming in and trying to take notes or type as they go along that all those different pieces. So it's about starting with efficiency, but also recognizing that some of these platforms, if you give it access to your brand, if you give it access to your website, give it access to some of the work that you've done already. If you already have a client base, it can help start building case studies. It can look at new prospects or new markets. So things that you would have sat down and thought, this is something I need to dedicate time to, think of how AI can help accelerate or compress some of those pieces. I think you had a good example we spoke about very recently, in fact, about preparing for a round table with a series of different clients. Maybe you just want to share what you did to prepare for that meeting and how it made the quality so much greater than what you would have been able to do by yourself.
And it was a good example because it saved a lot of time. I was normally I would spend a couple of hours stalking people on LinkedIn, if I'm allowed to say stalking, but having a look at their LinkedIn profile, seeing what they had posted about, commented on, doing Google searches, looking to see if there's anything on the web about them, any articles that had referenced them, any articles they had published. And I would normally do a whole lot of that kind of a research prior to a meeting. But meeting of 10 people would probably be over 2 hours worth of research. And so I used an AI, and earlier on when you were saying uh, owners should use the AI platforms, I think that a lot of people are quite hesitant because they think that it's complicated. It's actually not. And you use the term intern. I literally typed in as though I was writing to an intern, and I said, normally in preparation, I would do this, and I listed out my steps, look on LinkedIn, look for posts, blah, blah, blah. And then I would create a final document broken down by person with bullet points that I would want to bring up in discussion that were relevant to the topic of the roundtable. And I simply typed that all into the text box and I uploaded a spreadsheet of name, organization, job title, and their LinkedIn profile. And I pressed enter. And literally seconds later, it went bing. And there was a Word document complete, broken down the way that I wanted it to by person with bullet points. And it had done it far more comprehensively than I would normally have had the time to do. So I could rather, instead of spending 2 hours looking for information, I spent a much shorter amount of time actually absorbing the information and positioning the various people around the table so that I could go into the discussion far more prepared than I ever had been before. And at far less time cost to myself. Now, if you take that for a founder or somebody going out prospecting for new clients, something like that, this is literally, this will give them superhuman powers. And it's not difficult to use. You had a far more complex example that you had told me about where somebody had used it to create a whole lot of assets for a workshop. Do you want to share that one? Because again, I think that's taking it way to the next level, way more than a lot of people would do at a first attempt. But just to give an example of what it can do.
Exactly. So the founder here I was speaking to, he does a lot of work with different businesses, and he does one-to-one work with the founders, but also he runs workshops where they're bigger businesses to help educate the workforce on different areas. This is often around in the UK, around UK employee legislation, things that people have to be careful of, things that are shifting and changing, and making sure that a growing workforce is all on the same page. And what he had typically done over the last few years when he was commissioned to do these pieces of work is he would set aside literally a series of days to start preparing and researching, looking at the changes that had happened since the last time he had done something of this nature, um, look at the specifics of that company, that industry they were in, looking at the number of people that he would be presenting to, and the levels of seniority and different things people would need to be aware of, and then start building up, a set of documentation which would include like the high level agendas. It would include individual breakout session materials where people may have to have 1 or 2 page documents to work through to kind of move themselves forward, as well as a whole series of slides which walk through a 1 or 2 day workshop in this space and domain. And then finally, takeaway documents or booklets for people to be able to reference or work on afterwards. So quite a lot of physical work and a lot of research to kind of keep it up to date. He basically worked with one of the leading platforms to capture all of this, explained in normal language, like you were just describing a minute ago, of what he was looking for. He pointed to some of the to this particular client and some case studies or examples that would be relevant. He asked for a whole series of different pieces and then hit go. Went down and made a cup of coffee, came back up, and what had been prepared was an outline agenda, all the breakout materials for like 6 or 8 different sessions over 2 days, a 40 to 50 page presentation document, all with his branded materials, all with the current legislation, all with kind of simple summaries, but all broken out correctly, and then a detailed booklet which could be handed out at the end for people to work through. An online PDF booklet with things to complete. Literally done within sort of 10-15 minutes at the outset, and that would have taken him days of work. He went carefully through it all, found no mistakes of any materiality. He maybe adjusted a few words or took out words where it just wasn't quite logical, but what he would have had to have done anyway if he was preparing the material himself. Then he realized that this is, in some ways, the talking about AI being like an intern. Well, often interns, you have to give a lot of information. There's going to be things which aren't quite right. Then there's often, I hear something repeated when I talk with founders as saying, it would have been quicker if I'd have just done this myself. With AI, it's actually the opposite. They find that the work that they're doing, in the same way that you've just been describing with your example, is significant amounts of work can be done in extremely short periods of time to extremely high levels of quality, with some level of refinement and personalization, which would need to happen anyway. This person has many years of experience in this space and domain, so he was very confident about running the workshops, drawing the materials together, but would still know that there was a lot of physical preparation time for all of these pieces, and even just fiddling around with presentation slides and trying to get boxes clear and making sure that sort of page layouts worked and things didn't go over 2 pages, and all that had been done. All the time-consuming fiddly elements, which often soak up huge amounts of time, had all been captured and done for him. And he just saw ahead of him how he could keep offering these types of services that he only did intermittently because it required so much time. He could offer to more clients. He could potentially cut some of the costs down, make it more efficient for them to do it, get more value to the clients who he wanted to deliver better quality of services to, without impacting on the quality or time of his own work effort. And that's just kind of one example with one client. I'm seeing this across every client I'm working with. They are transforming different elements of their business. And I think the key piece is almost, pick something that you were previously familiar with but was quite time consuming, something you've got a capability or knowledge of, and then give that elements of that task or time consuming pieces to a leading AI platform like ChatGPT or Claude would be the two I would recommend as a starting point, and see what comes back, and then compare and contrast around what you would have done yourself. And I would be surprised if anyone sees that as, if not equal, but more likely better than what they would have done previously. And I think that is the kind of the power and transformation of what we're seeing literally right now, and it will only get more powerful and easier, I think.
And to sum it up, I'm going to use your own words, which you have said very often before on the show as well, is this provides people the ability to free up their time to work on the business instead of in the business. And that, I think, is the magic of this current set of AI tools that we're seeing coming out, is it enables that at a multiplication factor.
Exactly, and it means that the thing, your set of unique talents, for different business owners, it's all sorts of different things. But though the unique talents that you have can be concentrated, and the things that you still have to do, which but could be very time consuming, it may be creating a 15 or 20-page deck with some of the supporting materials, and then finding all the formats don't work, or you can't get the page layouts right, or the images don't work properly. Those sorts of things, which can be, we've all done this in the past. We've thought, going to create a document, it shouldn't take that long, and it takes disproportionate amounts of time. Suddenly, those things will take very short periods of time if the AI platforms are instructed correctly and they're given good examples of what good work looks like previously.
So basically, if you're a small business owner, a founder, a solopreneur, and you're not experimenting with AI at the moment, you need to be, because it's not going to be a differentiator for very long. It's going to be table stakes. Everybody's going to be using it. It's how you can use it to your best advantage to free up your time to work on the business.
Exactly. I think that's the perfect way of thinking about it. And there are then more sophisticated things people can do, but I think we save that for another day.
We
First,
will do.
bring the time and feeling you have not just one but multiple collaborators. So think of not just AI as a task you give something to and turn your back on it, but a collaborator in your business that can make you a more productive and valuable person to the clients who you're serving.
And with that, we'll wrap this week's episode.